Hi NYO-U, I'm Gillian Hilscher and I'm a violist from South Dakota. I'm really excited to be starting my freshman year at Princeton University this fall. I had such a great time with NYO-2's inaugural season and I can't wait to travel to Europe this summer with NYO-USA. I'll never forget my first rehearsal with NYO-2. Being able to play with such incredible musicians was so energizing and inspiring, and the friendships I formed in that orchestra made the final concert that much more special. I'm super excited to share with you some of my musical tips. In this video, I'll talk about some ways you can improve your performances by mastering some of the mental obstacles we come across when making music. Let's get started. I'm a pretty quiet and self-conscious person, and I tend to overthink a lot. I found that when I'm performing, there are oftentimes so many thoughts and doubts racing through my mind that it's impossible for me to enjoy the music and really relish the moment. After years of auditioning, performing, and learning, I've picked up a few strategies that I think will help you tackle that mental game that I know I've struggled with for so long. These tips aren't a total solution, but they'll definitely help you overcome some of those mental distractions that can interfere with your playing. Tip number 1, practice the way you'll perform. This might seem like an obvious thing to do, but it's actually super important. A few days before your performance, right before you go to practice your piece, close your eyes and try to visualize everything about the performance. The audition room, the audience or judge panel, everything. I tried this strategy a couple years ago at a summer camp and I found that it really helped. When I went to practice in the days leading up to my orchestra seating audition, I would close my eyes and visualize everything about the audition room. Once I had a clear picture of that in my head, I would go through the motion of every little thing I would do in the audition, from placing my music on the stand to looking over at the judges. Finally, I would play all the excerpts in the order that they would be asked in the audition. I would do all of this a few times each day so that when the actual audition came around, I felt way more confident because I'd already done it several times beforehand. I ended up placing first chair without audition, so I'm a strong advocate for this technique. Whether you're preparing for an audition or soloing with an orchestra, just visualizing the performance as you practice will help you trust yourself. Tip number 2, focus on the big picture of your piece. It's important to not get caught up in all the individual notes because all this worry will just distract your mind from your performance. Try to create a roadmap for your piece, a plan for where each of the phrases leads to and from. This will give you a path to follow so you know exactly what to do with each phrase. By eliminating any kind of uncertainty, your confidence will be boosted and your performance will be that much better. I did this when I was practicing the prelude to Bach's 5th cello suite. When I was working on the fugue section, I found myself getting jumbled up by the constant sixteenths because I wanted to make sure that each note spoke in just the right way. I was too focused on all the tiny details that when I played the fugue, it didn't even sound like music anymore. Once I took a step back and looked at the sixteenths in larger groupings, I was able to figure out where each phrase led to and from. It gave the piece a better flow and made it sound much more like music. It also boosted my confidence because I knew exactly what I was supposed to do with each phrase. If you can master this trick of focusing on the big picture and mapping out your phrases, you'll be on track to a better and more confident performance. Last tip. This one takes a bit of explaining, but here we go. For particularly difficult passages, choose a word, phrase, or idea to focus on that will give you something to control and will give you more power over the difficulty. Now, what do I mean by this? If you give yourself a word to focus on when you get to a trouble spot, then your mind will be occupied by that word and what it means, instead of by the fear that you'll make a mistake. For example, when I was practicing the Stamitz viola concerto, I struggled to get a double stop passage in tune. It wasn't until I had a teacher tell me to focus on a loose, wiggly jaw when I played that passage that I was finally able to improve my intonation. Now, whenever I get to that spot in a performance, instead of worrying that my fingers won't stretch wide enough, I just think loose jaw and the intonation is there. So the next time you get to a difficult passage in a piece, try thinking of relaxing a part of your body in order to help you play the passage well, and see what happens. One thing to remember though, it's important that the word you choose has something to do with the music or the technique you're trying to master. Otherwise, it's just another distraction. But if you're able to find a relevant word to focus on, you'll hopefully discover a lot less fear and uncertainty in your playing. So to recap. Number 1, practice your performance. When you practice, visualize everything about the performance so that when you do go to perform, you'll be a lot more confident because you'll feel like you've done it before. Number 2, focus on the big picture of your piece. Map out a clear plan for all the phrases in your piece. Instead of getting bogged down by every individual note, you'll be able to focus on the general idea of your piece, ultimately delivering a more meaningful and inspiring performance. And number 3, control your nerves with a simple but meaningful word or phrase. By choosing a key word to focus on in difficult passages, your mind will be occupied by that word and what it means instead of by your nerves. Thanks for joining me in this NYO-U mini masterclass on mastering the mental game of music. Again, I'm Gillian Hilscher, and if you found this video useful, go check out our other NYO-U mini masterclasses.